December will be a very eventful month in the weather department as we have lots of various weather events that could unfold, including nor'easters, snowstorms, and the polar vortex. We'll dive into those details and much more in today's December forecast. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below for detailed weather breakdowns on North America, and also press the like button down below. It'd definitely appreciate it. Looking currently at the sea surface temperature anomalies across the Central Pacific, we are still stuck in a strong El Nino currently, and you can see that by the index here. We are at plus 1.5, which indicates we are currently in a strong El Nino. Whenever you have a positive value, that is an El Nino, and whenever you're above 1.5, that is definitely a strong El Nino, and that is currently where we reside. Looking further down the road as we go through the rest of winter of 2023 and 24, you do notice that we start leveling off the index here on the El Nino and then start to turn back slowly toward a weaker El Nino as we get into the early portion of spring of 2024. So we have a long road ahead for El Nino that continues at least over the next several months. And just to remind you, the impacts typically for an El Nino, especially a strong El Nino event, we have a less than active polar jet stream across the north that brings in warmer temperatures for Canada and the northern tier of the United States, but also drier weather for the Ohio Valley. Then we have that very persistent, very active subtropical jet across the southern United States, bringing not only cooler weather, but wetter weather as well. And this doesn't always have to be rain. It could be snowfall further to the south across the southern United States as well. So that is what we see currently with our El Nino conditions. So let's look at our temperature outlook from December 1st today through December 10th, the first 10 days of the month. The key is down on the left-hand side of your screen. Much of the country, especially across portions of the Midwest, the upper Midwest, will be well above average with our temperatures as we go through the first 10 days of December. Near normal temperatures there across portions of the East Coast, and then slightly below normal temperatures for New England and up into portions of Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, upstate New York, places like Boston will be starting off the month with below normal temperatures, even just slightly so. Looking at our precipitation trends going in toward the first 10 days of the month here, you can see that we have the above average rains really coming in across the Pacific Northwest, some heavier snows in the mountainous regions as well across the Rockies, and some of that could linger into the upper Midwest at times as well. Also very active down there with that subtropical jet across the Rio Grande Valley and the lower Mississippi Valley. And then in between, we have more of the empty space where we really just don't have a lot of that storm track moving. So the desert Southwest across the Four Corners region and really the Mid-Atlantic on up into the Northeast and New England will be slightly below normal with our precipitation due to the storms either being north across the northern tier of the United States or further to the south across the southern tier of the United States. So areas in the central U.S., the eastern U.S., and southwestern U.S. will likely remain drier as they're in between the active storm track. Now, as we move from December 10th through the 20th, we're getting into mid-December, just a few days before Christmas time. You see the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes region, is definitely going to be well above normal with our temperatures. Now, we're not talking 80-degree temperatures, but we're definitely probably seeing more 30s and more 40s for high temperatures up here across those regions. And really, the northern tier of the United States during this period will be above normal overall. The southern tier of the United States is going to be either normal or below normal, at least slightly so down here near the southeast coast. That could include the Houston region, New Orleans, getting over towards Jacksonville, maybe even Miami, seeing some slightly below normal temperatures from December 10th through the 20th. As we look at the precipitation, it's going to become more active across the southern United States. That active subtropical jet will really kick in toward the middle of the month here, bringing our well above precipitation across the southeast coast, but even just the southern tier of the United States in general seeing some very active weather, and this doesn't always have to be rain. We could see snowfall even further to the south for places like Tennessee, Virginia, the Carolinas, those areas, maybe even further south from there, just depending on how cold it gets. And then to the north, we're going to have warmer temperatures overall during this period, but also quieter conditions with drier weather. So we're going to have slightly below normal precipitation around the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley during this period. But areas in white there, the Pacific Northwest, the Central Plains, the lower Ohio Valley, and up through much of New England and the Northeast will be near normal with our precipitation from December 10th through the 20th. Now finally getting into the last 10, 11 days of the month from December 20th through the 31st. This takes you through Christmas time frame and also New Year's Eve. You do notice some changes are occurring here. We have the warmer temperatures backing off to the west in the Pacific Northwest, places like Seattle, Portland, the Boise, Idaho region, definitely going to be well normal across those regions, well above normal there. And then you see to the east, we have the blues, the darker blues. Those are below to well below normal temperatures for the Midwest, especially getting into the eastern Great Lakes, New England, parts of the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast there, definitely seeing that. And the reason for that is it looks to become a polar vortex disruption. The polar vortex is going to be disrupting likely later on here into the month of December, and then eventually that could start to pull itself further to the south. Now, this could be delayed potentially into the early to middle portion of January, but we just have to note that there is a potential here for the polar vortex to disrupt and push further to the south with this real cold air mass, a true Arctic air mass later in December for that Christmas time frame and even that New Year's Eve, New Year's Day time frame. So definitely keeping an eye on that. And that would actually push the subtropical jet even further south. So the active weather will be lining up there with the active storm track from Texas through the Carolinas and the Dixie Valley region, and then up the East Coast with a favorable nor'easter track. We have the cold air coming in on the backside, the moisture from the Gulf of Mexico and the western Atlantic basin that will be feeding in potentially some heavier snowstorms for the Northeast if this pattern sets up later in December. Overall, though, looking at that period from December 20th through the 31st, again, Christmas time frame, New Year's Eve, we're going to see drier weather. It's going to be drier but very cold air up across the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes there, and the Ohio Valley. So not a lot of precipitation during that period, but that subtropical jet underneath across the southwestern U.S. and then across the southeast coast, including the Carolinas and Virginia, will likely be serving for some above normal precipitation to close out the month of December. Overall, this is the Climate Prediction Center's forecast for the entire month of December. When you average all 31 days out here, about 80% of the country will be in some shape or form above normal with our temperatures when you average all 31 days out. And looking at the active weather, where it will be and where it will not be, well, across the Pacific Northwest, Seattle in particular, will be well above normal with our precipitation. And then across the Southeast, up the East Coast there, across the lower Mississippi Valley, will be above normal with precipitation. And then you notice to the north, across North Dakota, Minnesota, Northwoods of Wisconsin, into the UP of Michigan, that is likely where we're going to be seeing more of that below normal precipitation. And that's due to the fact that if we do see that polar vortex disruption, that will bring in drier but colder air and then push that active storm track further to the south as we go later into December. Now, we also have to talk about severe weather. In December, you probably don't think about severe weather too often, but it happens in all 12 months sometimes of the year, and we have to be ready for it. So far, looking at tornado climatology for the 12th month of the year in December, likely you're seeing more tornado activity in the Dixie Valley region and the lower Mississippi Valley there in general across East Texas, portions of southeastern Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and to northwest Florida and even western Georgia, seeing that elevated threat for tornadoes even in the month of December. And then even significant tornado climatology, those EF2 or stronger strength tornadoes are more likely to be across the Dixie Alley region, especially a bullseye there around the Jackson, Mississippi region as well. So just because it is December doesn't mean we can't have tornado outbreaks or severe weather outbreaks. And they definitely are more common across the Dixie Alley region in the southeast U.S. during the month of December. Now, talking more true weather that we see typically in December is snowfall. And here's the big snowstorm confidence that I did draw up here over the past several days. Over 8 inches of snow in one single snowstorm. Here's the confidence I do have this upcoming December here. You notice across the higher elevations of Washington State and Oregon, it's going to be very high confidence. We're likely going to see that, and especially across the Sierras as well. That is pretty much a given this time of year. And then the main Rocky region across portions there of the Colorado Rockies, getting into Wyoming, Utah there around the Salt Lake City area, getting up there into Idaho and even southern portions of Montana. There's at least medium confidence of that happening. And then especially across the Ohio Valley, the eastern Great Lakes, and then on up into interior New England, north and west of the I-95 corridor, there's medium confidence that we could be seeing some heavier snows and 8 inches or more in one snowstorm this upcoming December. And then in the outlined areas there in the lighter yellow, there's at least that low chance of seeing that. That includes places like the Twin Cities there in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Chicago, Kansas City, maybe as far south as Nashville, Raleigh, North Carolina, the Roanoke, Virginia region, Tulsa, some of those areas there. Could still be seeing that even through the month there of December. So keep in mind with that as we go through the month. Overall, here's my official December forecast for 2023 across the Pacific Northwest, the Northern Rockies region. It's going to be very stormy. We're going to see storm after storm after storm with lots of rain and lots of heavy snow across that region, much like we have seen through the month of November. Across the southern tier of the United States, in the lime green areas across even Southern California, Los Angeles, the San Diego region, through Phoenix, getting in towards the Albuquerque region there and further east, we're likely going to see active weather overall. That subtropical jet will really crank up, especially later in December, with the effect of that El Nino playing a part as well, bringing more of that moisture further to the south. We have some snow there in the lighter blue across the central plains, bleeding out from the lee side of the Rockies there and toward the Missouri Valley and even into the lower Ohio River Valley, the Tennessee River Valley, seeing some snowstorm potential there as well through the month of December. And then moving north into the yellow, it's going to be mild. It's going to be a drier December. Now, that's not to say we can't have a few snowstorms and some colder spells, especially if that polar vortex disruption does occur later in December. But overall, when you average 31 days out, it's going to be mild. It's going to be dry across the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley in general. And then some big snows in the pink over there across New England, the Northeast, and the Mid-Atlantic, maybe even down into the Carolinas potentially, if we can have more of that polar vortex moving further south. That true Arctic air, and we have that meeting up with the cold air, and we have the moisture moving up there. We could have some nor'easter potential, and that could include as far south as northern South Carolina and North Carolina as we go through the month of December. So that is a potential with some bigger snows across those regions. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below if you do enjoy these weather forecast videos and you like detailed weather breakdowns across North America. Press the thumbs up button down below. I definitely appreciate that, and I hope everybody has a great December out there.